y'all. Welcome back to another edition of Real Estate with Noreen. This has been a hot topic in the housing market for the last few months. If you have not heard about it, seen it, I'm wondering where you've been. But a lot of the topic or a lot of the conversation has been revolving around what changes are happening as regards to real estate compensation or commission and what that means for buyers and sellers. In this video, I will talk through not only the historical context and where the real estate commissions and brokerage fees came about. I will also talk through how in this current market, how you can navigate it. So adding to the conversation, well as give you practical strategies and how to negotiate compensation moving forward. And this is coming from a licensed realtor, so you definitely want to hear me when I say this. And last but not least, I'll conclude with my thoughts about the future, about commissions and where it might be headed. So let's running way back to 1908. This is when the National Association of Realtors, also known as NAR, was formed. So they were the first formalized body that gave more formalized structure to commission-based compensation. When I say formalized doesn't mean standardized. There was never an official rule, a law, or a standard that was set that commission rates had to be a certain way. And even prior to 1908, in the early 1900s, there was no formalized structure to buying and selling of homes. It was mainly word of mouth. So there was no structure to compensation. Fast forward to 1920, that's when compensation became a little bit more commonplace. And around that time, commission was around 2.5%. Now, fast forwarding to around the 1960s to the 1980s, this is when commission splits became a little bit more common and the 6% commission rate started to be a little bit more prevalent. So the rate could be more or less than 6%. And this is when it was split between the buyer's broker and the seller's broker. Also during this time, many agents signed up with brokerages. So brokerages also took their fees from these splits. In the 1980s, 1990s, brokers almost had exclusive control over listings. So if you are a consumer looking to buy a house or sell your home, you almost always had to go through a broker in order to get it done. In addition, brokers at this time were working alongside sellers' agents as their sub-agent, meaning that they worked in the interest of the seller. Although they were helping to represent the buyer, they were looking out for the seller's best interest. This obviously caused some concerns and questions, ethical concerns, because buyers weren't always aware that the agent working for them was actually looking out for the seller's best interest. And it also made sense for the seller to compensate the buyer's broker because the buyer's broker was advocating for the seller. Now, sub-agency is much less common as states have made it illegal, and it's more common for the buyer to be aware that they can have their own representation and encouraged to have the agent looking out for their best interest. Moving along to the 1990s and early 2000s, now this is a time where society is rapidly evolving. There's an emergence of technology. The real estate industry is starting to be more formalized, booming, just a lot happening at this time. So at this time, commission rates were still around the 5 to 6% range. However, the Justice Department or Department of Justice started to get more pressure or put more pressure to crack down on the compensation model and to increase competition and fair transparency, as well as technology allowed for buyers and sellers to have more easy access to see homes on their own without the need of a broker. And it allowed technology helped to increase the matching of buyers to sellers because it just made transparency more of a thing. I want to pause because I've been talking about buyer broker, seller broker, agents. Let's clear the air. I've been throwing a lot of terms out there: brokers, buyer, selling agent. And I just want to clarify a bit so it's not continuously confusing. Agents are licensed to brokerages. So when you're compensating an agent, you're actually compensating the brokerage, not the agent themselves. However, there are individuals that are brokers. So sometimes if they are a licensed broker, then yes, you are compensating that broker. Back to talking about what's happening today when it comes to broker agent compensation. So I kind of went through the history of things, fast forward to the 2000s, and now we're in the current present day 2025. So when it comes to the NAR settlement, which happened at the end of 2024, just to clarify, the key takeaways that came from this is that one, written agreements are required between buyer brokers or buyer agents and the clients they work with. Two, compensation is no longer clearly stated on the MLS. So the MLS is the multiple listing service, is the main driving force which real estate agents use to find homes or to list homes to sell. So compensation is no longer listed on this database. Compensation now is more obviously negotiable. So it wasn't not negotiable before. It just wasn't as obvious or as transparent that a buyer or a seller could negotiate on compensation. So now it's much more transparent, much more straightforward. Some people will argue and say that it's made things more confusing. We're here now. We're here now. So the key in all of this, or the settlement, the aim was to make things more transparent. It didn't make sense at one point in time for the seller's agent to compensate the buyer's broker, but now not so much. It's just clear to the buyer and the seller who is compensating who, and it's a choice between either parties who ultimately compensates who. I would say that I am currently seeing, and my other colleagues are seeing this as well, that in the majority of the transactions, sellers are still compensating adequately buyers' agents. To this day, there still isn't a standard compensation model, as I've mentioned before. It's just common practices in how agents and brokers charge for their services. And compensation for brokerages can range from 1% to 6%. And folks are still more than willing to pay within that range on the higher end or on the lower end. On to the strategies and ways to negotiate compensation. First and foremost, ask. If you don't ask, you don't receive. That's a fundamental truth. Let's say, for example, you are either selling a house or buying a house at a higher price point. There is opportunity there to negotiate your commission rate down given the higher price point. On the other side, if you're buying or selling a home in a lower price point, then fairly compensate your agent for the work to be had in order to either list a home or find you a home. Set a fair price, and don't be shy or don't shy away from paying for good services as you do in any other industry. Another example may be if you're working with an agent that's representing both the buyer and the seller side, it might make sense for you to negotiate compensation there too, because they're representing both ends of the deals. Now, there's more work involved in representing both ends of the deal, so you can negotiate higher. It's not always about negotiating lower. You can negotiate lower as well if there's something else coming with that lower negotiation fee. So you're reducing a service or taking something away. Again, we're looking for fairness here. Please note that dual agency is not recognized in Maryland, so that's something that can't legally happen in Maryland, but it happens in other states like in Virginia and DC. So one agent can legally represent both sides of the transaction, and sometimes it makes sense for the transaction and allows for a smoother process, and other times it does not make as much sense. Another strategy is to compare agents, compare their rates, but don't only look at the rates, also consider what comes with their services or working alongside them, their aptitude, their strategies, their connections, their whatever other commas whatever other commas that they're bringing to the plate. If they're an agent as well as a contractor, that might be pretty lucrative. Although I haven't personally seen that often, it might be a thing. So if it makes sense for the deal to work with an agent that can also help to contract services for you to remodel your home, then you might want to go with that agent. But overall, talk to at least 2 agents, maybe 3, to understand the different services they provide, what rates they're charging, and see what works best for you and your goals. I would say though, it's not always the best to go with the cheapest. Sometimes it is. If you're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, you have a lot of the resources, you know what you're doing, you just need a little bit of help, maybe going with a lower commission rate, less services makes sense for you. However, it depends on your goals. Sometimes it does make sense for you to get more quality, comprehensive, robust services, and that comes at a cost. So cheapest is not always the best. I really encourage you to look at the full picture, not just an aspect of it. Really think about it. Like, let's think about court, for example. Let's say you got that day where you do have to show up for court for who knows what, and you have a choice to have a lawyer or to not have a lawyer. In some cases, maybe it makes sense for you to not have a lawyer. Is it recommended? Not likely, but it happens. And you even selecting a lawyer, you have a choice of going with a public defender or going with a private top-notch lawyer. Again, there's ranges to it. Depending on your case, depending on your circumstance, is it always recommended for you to go with a public defender or to go with a top-notch lawyer? The choice is all yours. Really depends on your circumstance and what you're going through, but consider the full picture. Another strategy to consider is doing a tiered commission structure. So let's say you're listing a home with an agent, and if that home sells for above list price, you can offer 5% commission. If it sells at sales price, then you can offer 4%. And if it sells below, you can offer 3.5, 3%, just tiered in that way. So there's different ways and different avenues to incentivize, but not also hurt professionals in the industry at the same time, where everyone can be satisfied and happy and reach a fair agreement. Hey, real quick, if you like what you're hearing and I am spinning some gems that are opening your eye sockets and your brain, you're like, ooh, wow, this is awesome, hit that like button. Real quick, I'm giving you a second to do it, so I'm even doing you a favor. But thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, so we talked a bit about the past, hit on the present a bit, so now let's head over to the future. I believe moving forward that we'll continue to see more of these types of nuance or different ways to compensate agents and their services. So you might see something like a la carte services or a la carte or menu type of offering. So you're able to select the services you need from an agent or a brokerage and just pay for that. So that might look like you just paying for title services, or you just paying for someone to help negotiate the sale for you, or you just paying for listing your home on the MLS. Another opportunity might be just flat fee services. So you pay a flat fee for the certain services or bundle of services that you're looking for. So paying a flat fee for an agent or brokerage to handle the back end nature of a transaction, so the paperwork and getting the deal to close, where you as the seller are responsible for the open houses and showing the home. We might see something where services are packaged together, like you can get help with your negotiation and listing and maybe open houses, but not showing of the home, and having a fee or percentage for that and not having a fee, or just saving money on the aspects of it that you can handle on your own. Rebates, that's a thing that is currently happening in the market, where broker or agent gives part of their commission to the client. So we may see more rebates happening in the future, where depending on the deal, you as a buyer or a seller can come get in on that commission and win as well, which is beautiful. I mean, who doesn't love a win-win situation? Not only may we see the evolution of how compensation is done in the future, there may be evolution in how we just transact. So there may be more online platforms with the boom of technology that make offers and commissions more transparent. So whatever you offer on a home, instead of it being in a black box between the buyer's broker and the seller's broker, it can be on an online platform where it's just much more transparent on what the offers are. And there are platforms that exist today that do that, mind you, but it's going to take some time for it to really widely distribute across the world, or at least across the nation. On these same platforms, you might have more transparency on what the commission rate are being offered. Now, am I saying it's actually going to happen? No, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I ain't got it. But I'm just saying it could happen, because at this point, it's like anything can happen. I can also see more brokerages partnering with online platform services. So combining both worlds instead of keeping them separate, and combining services and compensation models. That could be a thing. Collaboration goes a long way. The collaboration can lead to more accessibility, more transparency, and it can also allow more visibility to brokerages that maybe didn't have the same visibility before partnering with an online platform. But in having more visibility, the brokerage can highlight their services, and on one front, the consumer might enjoy using the combination of the online and the brokerage, but might just kind of hop off and just work with the brokerage directly to get more direct-to-consumer services. There are consumers in this current day and in the future, I believe, that are more than willing to pay for a higher compensation and in order to get better quality services and to really match the goals that they have. And there also will be consumers that will choose the lower commission rates and the more discount brokerages. All is welcome, honestly. So while there's still an opportunity to have fair and open competitive markets, all can coexist. Overall, the hope and the aim is to have more transparency and overall more trust in the industry, and consumers working with agents and agents working with consumers. It's best for all parties. Okay, so final thoughts. I believe that options for consumers are helpful. It's your money, and you should have the power to spend it as you choose. It's empowering. As a consumer myself, I want and evoke my right to spend my money as I choose and as I please. I also believe in a competitive market where fairness across all parties is existent. There is an opportunity and the possibility for things to be fair for everyone. As you know, it can be hard earning your own dollar, as well as it can be hard to be a professional providing services for clients and meeting their needs and making sure they are happy and satisfied with the services provided. So having pay that matches the work is fair. So keep that in mind as you go on your house buy or you're looking to sell your home. That's all I have, folks, for today, but that's not all I have to say. Please check out this video over here, and don't forget to subscribe for more content. See you soon.